My name is Ashley, and I was 24 at the time, working as a junior designer. This happened at my first real agency job in Atlanta. It was late, but not unusually late. One of those nights where nobody officially says you have to stay, but everyone knows leaving early would be noticed. We were wrapping final comps for a client who kept asking for small tweaks that weren't small at all. The office looked sleek in the daytime. At night, it felt stripped down. I was new enough that I didn't know when it was okay to log off, so I stayed. Told myself I'd leave after one more export. That's when Trevor showed up at my desk again. He wasn't on my team, account side, but he hovered around creative a lot. Always helpful, always checking in. The kind of guy who made a point of learning your name fast and using it often. When I first started, I thought he was just friendly. He'd comment on my work, ask where I was from, joke about agency burnout. But over time, the questions got more specific. What part of town I lived in, whether I had roommates, what time I usually left. That night, he leaned on the edge of my desk and smiled. "You're still here," he said. "Trying not to redo this entire thing," I told him. He laughed. "Want me to walk you out when you're done?" I smiled because I assumed he was joking. "I'm good." "It's late," he said, like he was correcting me. "I'll be fine." He paused. "You sure?" "Yes," I said more firmly. He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll just be around." I packed up a few minutes later and headed toward the elevators. There were still a handful of people waiting, headphones in, half paying attention. I hit the button and waited. Trevor appeared beside me. "Told you," he said, "I'd be around." The elevator was taking its time. He looked at the stairwell door. "We can take the stairs. It's faster." The elevator felt awkward and crowded. The stairs were quieter, more direct, and I was tired. "Sure," I said. He held the door open for me. As we started down, I noticed his footsteps weren't beside mine, they were behind. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Stairwells were narrow. People walked differently. We passed one landing, then another. The sounds changed as we moved, our steps echoing louder. "So," he said, casual, "you live alone?" I stopped short for half a second. "No, I have a roommate." "Good," he said. We kept going. "Where do you park again?" "Lower level," I said before I could stop myself. "Perfect." That's when I slowed down. "Why are you asking me that?" He smiled. "Just making conversation." It didn't feel like conversation. It felt like he was checking boxes. We reached the next landing. The door behind us swung shut, heavy and final. He stepped ahead of me and rested his hand on the push bar of the door leading down, blocking the angle. "Come on," he said lightly. "You've been kind of off with me lately. I just want to make sure we're good." "We're good," I said. "Then tell me you're not mad." "I need to go," I said. He didn't move. He leaned in, still smiling. "You're making this weird." I tried to step around him. There wasn't space without brushing past him. The stairwell suddenly felt very small, like every inch mattered. I was weighing options, how hard I could push, whether anyone would hear, when the door below us flew open. Light poured in. Footsteps. A guy from another floor coming up fast, earbuds in. "Hey," he said, annoyed, like we were in the way. Trevor's entire demeanor flipped. "Oh, hey," he said cheerfully, lifting his hand off the door, just making sure she got down safe. I didn't wait. I slipped past him and headed down. I walked straight to my car, keys already out, scanning between rows like I'd misplaced something. I locked the doors the second I got in and sat there staring at the steering wheel. The next day, Trevor acted like nothing happened. Joked in the kitchen, slacked me a meme, asked how my morning was. I thought about reporting it, but nothing had happened. Not officially. No threat, no witnesses. Just a moment where my choices narrowed. So I adjusted instead. Different parking levels, different routes, elevators only. I stopped staying late alone. If I did, I called my roommate and kept her on the line until I was in my car. A few months later, I was badging in when I overheard security talking. "That account guy asked again," one of them said. Wanted to know what time the designers usually leave. I didn't ask which one. I already knew. My name is Dave. I was managing a casual restaurant in Reno, and this happened during a closing shift. It was a midweek night. The restaurant feels bigger once the last table walks out. Lights still on, music still playing, booths wiped down, chairs flipped, the smell of fryer oil still in the air. We weren't fancy. Burgers, ribs, local crowd. Families early, drinks late. Most of my adult life had been spent managing places like that, so closing happened without me even thinking about it. Print the reports, count the drawers, do the safe drop, walk the kitchen, check the back doors. Same routine every night. That night, it was me, a dishwasher named Manny, and a guy named Derek. Derek had been there longer than most. Not management, but he liked acting like it. Always watching, always talking about theft, always positioning himself as the only one who really cared. Earlier that week, we'd had an issue with someone sneaking leftover beer out after close. Owner got upset, gave a speech about shrink, threatened to cut hours. Since then, Derek had been acting like we were guarding a vault. So when he said casually, "I'm locking the fire exit," I didn't react right away. I was in the office counting drawers, pen in hand. "What?" I said. He was standing in the doorway, keys already out, smiling. "The fire exit," he said. "We've been getting hit." I looked up. "That door stays accessible." He laughed, like I was being dramatic. "Relax. Nobody uses it." "It's a fire exit," I said. "Don't lock it." He lifted his hands in surrender. "Okay, boss. Just trying to help." Then he walked away. I should have followed him. Should have checked the door myself. That's what I usually do. But Manny was on a trash run. I still had the safe drop, and I was tired in that end-of-shift way where everything feels heavier. I finished the count, grabbed the deposit bag, and headed down the back hall toward the freezer. The back of a restaurant at night has its own noise. Refrigeration units humming, metal popping as it cools, the ice machine cycling. Normal sounds, but they feel louder when you're one of the last people inside. I did a quick inventory, checked the walk-in, made a note about missing chicken tenders, and headed for the back exit. I pushed the bar. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. For a second, my brain told me I was doing it wrong, pulling instead of pushing, being stupid. I checked the handle. Locked. In that moment, irritation turned into something I couldn't ignore anymore. I walked fast to the front. Dining room lights were dimmed now. Manny was still outside. Derek was by the host stand, wiping a counter that didn't need it. "Why is the back exit locked?" I asked. He didn't pretend. "Because we've been getting hit." "We're still inside," I said. "It's just for a minute," he said. "Relax." I moved past him and tried the front doors. Locked. Side door. Locked. I stopped and looked at him. "Unlock them," I said. He didn't move. "Why are you so tense?" "I'm not tense," I said. "Unlock the doors." He sighed, like I was exhausting him. "You don't trust anybody." That's when I noticed the chair. It had been nudged against the front entrance, not enough to block it, just enough to slow it. The kind of thing you do if you want control without making it obvious. "Move the chair," I said. He smiled. "You really don't trust me." "What are you doing?" I asked. "Proving a point," he said. "You always act like I'm the problem." I walked back to the rear hall and pushed the fire exit again, then went back up front. "Derek, unlock the doors." He looked at me. "Or what?" My mind jumped straight to logistics. What if Manny tried to come back in? What if a fryer flared? What if someone got hurt? What if there was any emergency at all? Every exit was controlled by one guy with a key he shouldn't have been using. I pulled out my phone. Derek's tone shifted immediately. "Don't do that." "Unlock the doors," I said. He stepped closer. "You're really going to call the cops over a door?" he asked. "I'm calling someone," I said, "because you locked fire exits with people inside." For a second, it felt like he was deciding how far he could push. Then there was a knock on the front door. Hard. impatient. A delivery guy from a nearby bakery stood outside with a crate, trying to see in. Derek flinched, just a little. He moved fast then, slid the chair away, unlocked the door, flipped into friendly mode. "Sorry about that," he said to the guy. "Just closing up." While he signed the slip, I went straight back and tested the fire exit again. After the delivery guy left, Derek acted like the moment had passed. "What?" he said when I stared at him. "Happy now?" I didn't argue. I told Manny to clock out and stayed between Derek and the doors until he finally left, talking the whole time like we were friends, and this had all been nothing. The next day I told the owner, and the owner did what owners do when they don't want paperwork. He was probably just being overprotective, he said. No one got hurt. No one got hurt, like that was the only thing that mattered. Derek stayed. The owner talked to him. Nothing changed. He kept offering to walk people out, kept watching, kept smiling. I quit a few weeks later, not because the job was hard. I'd managed restaurants my whole life. I quit because Derek proved something that night, and I couldn't unknow it. He could control the exits with one cheap key, and he did it calmly, like he'd been waiting for the right moment to try. I was 22, interning on a corporate campus in Reston. Late shift, everyone else was gone. It was one of those glass and steel office parks that looks impressive during the day and feels wrong at night. Bright lobby, big logo on the wall, security desk that mostly exists for show. After business hours, the place turns quiet in a way that makes every sound hard to ignore. I stayed late a lot during that internship. I wanted to be the intern who got invited back. I had this idea that if I worked harder than everyone else, someone would notice. That night, I was finishing a deck that had already been revised 3 times. Fonts, spacing, numbers, the kind of work where you stop trusting your own eyes. I'd ordered delivery that tasted like cardboard and was running on caffeine and stubbornness. Around 7:30, I heard footsteps, not cleaning crew footsteps. No cart, no keys, just someone walking. I looked up and saw Martin, not his real name, but close enough. He wasn't my manager, he wasn't even on my team. He was one of those mid-level employees who seemed to float everywhere. I didn't know anyone. I was new. He'd tell me which directors were difficult, who to avoid, who liked interns who took initiative. But after a while, it started to feel like he always knew where I was. If I moved to a conference room, he'd pass by. If I took a call in the hallway, he'd appear at the corner like he was heading somewhere else. He always had a reason. I always told myself I was imagining it. That's the thing with offices. You don't want to be dramatic, especially as an intern. Martin leaned against my cubicle wall. "Still here," he said. "You're dedicated." I smiled. "Or bad at time management." "You're not bad," he said quickly. "Need help?" "I'm good," I said. "Almost done." He nodded, but didn't leave. He asked what I was working on. I gave him the short version. He complained about the director. I laughed in the right places and kept my hands on the keyboard so it looked like I was busy. Then he said, "Can you come to the break room for a second?" The break room was down a long hallway, past dark conference rooms with glass walls. During the day, it was crowded. At night, it felt staged. "What for?" I asked. 2 minutes, he said. "I don't want people hearing." That didn't make sense. There was no one around. But he said it like he was doing me a favor. I should have said no. Instead, I saved my work, grabbed my phone, and followed him. The motion lights clicked on ahead of us and shut off behind us. Every glass surface reflected us like we were the only 2 people left in the building. Inside the break room, the overhead light was on, but it still felt dim. It smelled like old coffee and microwaved food. Martin stepped in first. I stayed close to the doorway without meaning to. He looked toward the hallway, then bent down and slid something under the door. Small. Dark. A rubber doorstop. He did it smoothly like it was normal. "Sorry," he said. "This door slams." I looked at the wedge, then at him. "Okay." He leaned against the counter, calm, comfortable. "I've been meaning to talk to you," he said, "about your future." I nodded, even though my shoulders were all tense. "You're smart," he continued. "People notice, but internships don't mean much unless you play them right." That should have felt flattering. It didn't. Then he shifted. "Do you have a boyfriend?" he asked. It wasn't playful, just direct. "No," I said. He watched my face. "You're always nice to me. Why? Because you're older than me. Because I want a job. Because I don't know how to say no without consequences." "I'm nice to everyone," I said, forcing a small laugh. He didn't laugh. He stepped closer. "You don't have to do that," he said. "You can be honest." That's when I decided I was done. I reached for the door handle, casual, like I was just heading back to my desk. I turned it. Nothing. I pushed again. Harder. Still nothing. I laughed, automatically. It stuck. Martin didn't move. He just watched me. I tried again. Slower. Felt the resistance. The wedge. "Did you lock the door?" I asked. "So we could talk," he said. "We talked," I said. "Move it." "Why are you uncomfortable?" he asked, like he was genuinely curious. I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone and opened my team group chat. "Hey, anyone still on this floor? I think I left my charger somewhere." The typing bubble appeared and the relief was immediate. "Who are you texting?" Martin asked. "No one," I said, then corrected myself. "Just checking." He lifted his hand slightly. "Okay, I'm just talking." I tried the door again. Nothing. Footsteps passed in the hallway. Cleaning staff. The sound changed everything. Martin sighed like I was inconveniencing him, reached down and kicked the wedge away. The door opened easily. "See?" he said, bright again. "No big deal." I walked out without saying anything, went straight back to my desk and stared at my screen until my body caught up with what just happened. I packed up as soon as the cleaners moved on and left without looking for him. The next day, he acted normal, joked, asked if I was good. I said yes and avoided being alone after that. Changed my schedule, left with other people, not because anything happened, but because something almost had. A couple weeks later, I walked past his desk while he was gone. One drawer was open. Inside was the same rubber doorstop, right next to a pack of pens. Not an accident, not a coincidence, a tool. I closed the drawer and walked away. This one sounds small until you realize what it implies. Back in 2021, I worked at a mid-size corporate campus. Badge access, front desk, security office near the loading bay, the kind of place that likes to feel secure. I wasn't anyone important, but IT is one of those roles where people know your name because you're the person they call when they're locked out or something breaks 5 minutes before a meeting. That week was normal. Tickets, printer issues, password resets. Thursday night, I went to bed early because I'd been feeling run down, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't really fix. Friday morning, I woke up knowing I wasn't going in. Scratchy throat, unsettled stomach, that foggy heaviness that makes even standing feel like a negotiation. I texted my manager, "Not coming in today, not feeling great." He replied, "Got it, feel better." That was it. No Slack message, no team email. I didn't say I was sick, just absent. I put my phone on silent and spent the morning half asleep on the couch, TV on low, not really watching. At 10:12 a.m., my phone lit up. It was a text from Aaron. Aaron wasn't my boss. He worked in operations. I dealt with him often because he always had urgent IT problems that never actually were. The text said, "Feeling better yet?" On its own, it wasn't alarming, but it was early, and I hadn't told anyone I was sick. People miss work for all kinds of reasons. I replied, "Hey, just taking the day. Not feeling great." I expected that to be the end of it. Instead, he responded almost immediately, "Did you finally get that cough checked?" That made me sit up, because I hadn't told him about a cough. I'd had one, a dry, lingering thing, but I wasn't talking about it at work. I'd mentioned it once casually to a teammate during a meeting weeks earlier. Aaron wasn't there. I remembered that clearly. I tried to explain it away. Maybe I coughed near him once. Maybe he guessed. Still, it bothered me. Finally get that cough checked sounded like something he'd been tracking. I replied, "What cough? I'm just not feeling well." A minute passed. Then another text came through. "Hope it's not your stomach again." That one hit harder. I had gone home early once months before with food poisoning. I told my manager. That was it. I hadn't made it a story. I hadn't told Aaron. There was no reason for him to know that. Now my brain started doing inventory. Had my manager said something casually? Did HR include details somewhere? Had I mentioned it in a group chat and forgotten? I checked everything. Slack, texts, emails, calendar notes. Nothing. I walked into the kitchen like changing rooms might change the facts. Took water from the fridge, stood there holding the glass, replaying conversations in my head. I texted back, "How would you even know that?" He replied, "Lol, just guessing. I worry about you, man." The lull didn't help. Then another message came in. "I can swing by if you need anything." That's when my attention narrowed. We weren't friends. We didn't hang out. We barely talked unless something was broken. There was no reason he'd swing by. I hadn't responded yet when I heard something outside. A car door. I didn't rush to the window. I didn't want to be obvious. I walked to the side of the living room where the blinds didn't quite close and looked through the gap. There was a car parked down the street. Not parked in front of a house, not in a driveway. Just sitting there. I couldn't see the driver clearly, windshield glare and distance. But the car wasn't moving. After maybe 30 seconds, it rolled forward slowly, then stopped again. Normal drivers don't do that. They park, they leave, or they keep going. This felt like adjustment. I stepped back and checked the locks. Front door, deadbolt, back door, garage, all secure. I went back to my phone. The question that kept repeating wasn't, "Is that him?" It was, "How would he know where I live?" I didn't text him again. I didn't want confirmation, and I also didn't want to be wrong. So I called my manager. He answered quickly. I asked if he'd told anyone why I was out. "No," he said. "I just said you weren't in." "Did HR send anything?" "No. Why?" I told him about the texts. His confusion turned into irritation fast. "That's not normal," he said. "Don't respond. If he shows up, call the police." Hearing someone else say it out loud helped. I hung up and checked the blinds again. The car was still there. A minute later, it rolled forward, turned the corner, and disappeared. Later that afternoon, I asked my manager to quietly look into something. How someone could access my address. He called me back sounding uncomfortable. Apparently, earlier that month, Aaron had asked the front desk for my home address. He said it was for an emergency contact update. And the front desk, who should have stopped it, gave it to him because he sounded official and confident. There was no record, nothing I could point to and say, "This is the moment it crossed a line." Nothing technically happened. He didn't knock. He didn't leave anything. He didn't commit a crime anyone wanted to deal with. But that's what stayed with me. It wasn't that he knew I was sick. It was that he knew how to find me without asking and tried it like it was normal. I'm 29, inventory in a distribution center in Ontario. Night counts. Big building, bad lighting even when it's on. This was in 2021 when I was working swing into nights. The shift that starts busy and ends quiet in a way that never feels natural. During the day, the warehouse is loud and crowded. At night, it feels like the building is pretending to be empty while you're still inside it. I was doing cycle counts in the back half, where the aisles get tighter and the pallets go all the way up to the steel. Shrink wrap everywhere. Forklifts parked with their forks low, like they'd been put to sleep. You can stand between racks back there and not be visible from either end unless someone walks right up on you. I had my scanner, a clipboard, and one earbud in with a podcast playing low. Not for entertainment, just to stop my brain from filling the silence with noise that wasn't there. Half the job at night is counting. The other half is not getting trapped somewhere dumb. The lighting was already being annoying. Some sections were motion censored, others controlled remotely by facilities. You learn to wave an arm now and then to keep the lights from dimming. It's normal. Everyone jokes about it. I was halfway through counting a bin of small hardware, bolts and brackets that never matched the label, when the lights shut off. The hum stopped. The scanner screen lit my hands, and that was it. Normally, the emergency strips kick on right away. Thin lights along the floor, exit signs glowing red and green. Ugly, but comforting. There was a gap, a few seconds where nothing came on. Long enough to feel how big the dark actually was. I stood still, waiting for the emergency lights, telling myself it was another power-saving glitch. I even smiled, already picturing the next meeting where someone would say, "We're improving the lighting situation." Then I heard a voice. Close. Oh, I thought everyone left. It was a woman's voice, familiar enough that my brain tried to pin it to someone I worked with. But the way it sounded was wrong. In a warehouse, voices echo. This didn't. It sat right in the aisle with me, like it wasn't meant to carry. My first thought wasn't fear. It was irritation. Who's messing around back here? I said, yeah, I'm still here. The second I spoke, I wished I hadn't. My voice sounded too loud, like I just dropped a tool on concrete. I'd given away exactly where I was. I waited for a response. But there was nothing. No footsteps leaving, no apology, just quiet. I pulled my phone out and turned on the flashlight. The beam bounced off shrink wrap and reflective tape, turning everything white and then gone again. No person. But the voice hadn't come from the main lane behind me. It had come from inside the aisle. Then I heard footsteps. Quiet. The kind you make when you don't want to announce yourself. They were coming toward me. I backed up slowly, keeping the phone light up, sweeping it side to side. I didn't turn and run. Too many things to trip over. My shoulder brushed a pallet, cardboard digging into my arm. Everything smelled like detergent from the cleaning supplies stored nearby. I called out again. Who is that? Still nothing. The steps kept coming, staying inside the aisle. That mattered. Someone in the main lane would sound different. This felt intentional, like they were using the racks to stay close. I moved the flashlight down. The beam hit a pallet jack. The footsteps stopped the moment my light hit it. Right then, the emergency lights flickered on. Weak strips along the floor, exit signs glowing. Enough to see shapes, not enough to feel settled. The aisle was empty. No one between the racks, no one at either end. Just the pallet jack sitting there like it belonged. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting for someone to step out and laugh and say it was a joke. I walked out into the main lane fast, not running, but not casual either, and stopped near a camera pole with a blinking light. I radioed the floor lead and told him the lights went out in my section and there was equipment in my aisle that hadn't been there before. I added, quieter, that I'd heard someone. He told me to stay put. He came back with another lead. I explained it without drama, showed them the aisle, the pallet jack, repeated the exact sentence the voice said because it felt important. Probably maintenance, one of them said. They mess with the lights. I asked if maintenance was on site. He shrugged. We checked the sign-out sheet, just a clipboard with times and initials. One name stood out. Carla, from a nearby zone. Clocked out 10 minutes before the lights went off. Carla's voice could have been the one I heard, close enough that my brain wanted it to be her. When she came in the next day, I asked her straight up if she'd been back there around 1. She looked confused. No, I clocked out and went straight to my car. I told her what happened. Her eyes darted away for half a second before she said, "That wasn't me." I asked my supervisor about the lights shutting off all at once. He said it was a power-saving cycle. When I mentioned the delay before the emergency strips, he said, "Sometimes there's a lag." I asked who could control the lights. Facilities. maybe security. I asked about cameras in those aisles. Mostly main lanes, he said, which meant the tight places weren't covered. A week later, I was back in that section for another count. Same aisle, same shelves, same smell. The pallet jack was gone, but the lights blinked just once like a test, then stayed on. I didn't tell myself it was definitely a person. I didn't have proof, no footage, no name that fit cleanly. What I had was this. The voice came from inside my aisle, the lights went out in a way they normally didn't, and something was placed in my path like a marker. And I had that sign-out sheet. Carla clocked out, but the voice sounded close enough to make my brain hesitate. Like the building offered me a familiar explanation, so I wouldn't push further. If these stories made you rethink who you trust at work, you're not overreacting. Smash that like button, subscribe for more nightmares, and let me know which story made you the most uncomfortable. Now, if you want something even worse, imagine being paid to sit alone all night and watch empty buildings. Click now to watch 4 scary security guard horror stories. Because some jobs don't just observe danger, they attract it. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.